Thank you so much for joining today. And here we are going to talk about your expectations as entrepreneurs building powerful, interesting, impactful businesses in edtech. What are some of the things that you think that we should be doing as a country to actually leapfrog and become, one of the most qualified, educated, and progressive economies?
See, one point is more related to startups, not necessarily related to edtech. Is that see one of the pressing demand that startups have from a long time, and I just want to reiterate is this whole ESOP policy, the way it is being treated, the way is actually is the whole concept of that you get tax at the time of theoretically getting some gain, but you have no money in your pocket is actually not a very encouraging. From employee perspective, right? So if something can be done in that regard, I think that will definitely go a long way in startups' ability to really attract very strong talent. If I have to talk about edtech in particular, especially related to the kind of edtech that I represent, which is like reskilling, upskilling, and lifelong learning, I think there are a couple of things. If that can happen, it will definitely help us help we as a company, help the ecosystem, help the country. A lot of advantages. One is that as a country, we want more and more people to become highly skilled. Because if you're highly skilled, a lot of global jobs will come to India. Now, the pandemic has further proved this point that you can pretty much work for anyone from anywhere. So the jobs will go where the talent is. And we want high-end talent to be in our country. We don't want like to do data entry job. We want to do high-end AI, machine learning, cybersecurity, that kind of job. So when people are enrolling for such kind of programs, we want to encourage them. We don't want to discourage them by charging 18% GST.
Yeah.
So I think imagine someone taking a 2 lakh course, and any decent course will cost that much for a year. You are paying as much as roughly 36,000 just as a tax to the government. And from the candidate perspective, you imagine that 2 lakh that candidate is paying is already his post-tax income. He's not getting an ability. So it's not a company that he can use that GST to balance some of his other outgoings. So from a candidate perspective, like asking them to pay this kind of tax on a skilling course that the person wants to take to become more employable so that he can earn more money and he can in turn pay more taxes to the government is actually very discouraging. So that is one thing that if can happen will really help. And this also goes very well with the government's plan of this whole gross enrollment ratio. The government of India has kept this ambitious goal that they want to increase their gross enrollment ratio by 2035 to 35%, right? Which is pretty high.
Yeah.
There is no way as a country we don't have enough universities, we don't have enough colleges. There is no way as a country we can afford to build double our universities and colleges offline. We can't afford it. So the only way is that we let people learn online, and for that to happen, it's important that online education starts getting treated as offline. Just as to re-emphasize, if you take an offline course from a university, it doesn't attract 18% GST. It's like GST free. So there's a huge difference. There will be some GST, but 18% GST is like saying that okay, it's a scene. You are having the what we call the time of your lifetime. So why not pay 18% GST on that? So it doesn't make sense. That's one thing. The second thing that I have is that the government from time to time they encourage a lot of industry. They helped building the industry. Like insurance is one such example. I remember when we were a kid, our parents never used to take health insurance. They thought that if you take insurance, if you don't use it, paisa waste ho gaya. That was a mindset that time, right? But now insurance is being taken by everyone, right? There's a necessity. And one of the things that drove this high insurance adoption was that if you buy an insurance, you can deduct that from your taxable income. I think a lot of people started buying insurance first from that perspective, that if I buy insurance, I can save that kind of taxes. So when it comes to skilling and improving your employability quotient, if a person gets an ability that every year they can spend X percentage of their income on upskilling themselves, and they can show that as a deductible in their income tax filing, I think that will also go a long way in driving this behavior. So if there is a way in which government allows saying that, okay, up to say 50,000 you can spend on skilling yourself, take anything, not necessarily a course in data science or AI, pretty much anything. You want to become a good speaker, take a course related to how to become a good speaker, and pretty much everything. I think that will also help a lot in higher adoption of lifelong learning as a habit, and as a country become more employable and more high-end skills.
Krishna, one before I move to the next speaker, one quick question is that do you see this being done across, or do you think this should be done in a staggered manner?
So I think, Shraddha, what I understand is that government also has a lot of constraint. One, they don't want to let go of any income because they are also short of money. So I think one of the easiest things can be that, okay, let it be a function of your taxable income. So let's say if you're earning X amount, maybe say 5% of your X that you earn today, you can use to upskill yourself. But I think keeping this to say that you can only do AI or you can only do data science might not be a good idea. People could do, let's see, in today's world, we know that if you're good in something, it's always you're valuable, right? You can be a very good magician, and you can be valuable, right?
Yeah. No, but what you said is that the answer I wanted. What you're saying is that based on your income, whatever your income is, then a certain part of that can be used for this. Yeah, okay, got it. I think that's very, very useful, and it will help a lot of people, because one of the biggest challenges in our country today is, which we can't brush it under the carpet, is the skilled workforce which will be required, and increasingly that the requirement for that is going to only increase. So yeah, this is a very valid point, Krishna. Thank you. Yeah.
No, so Shraddha, I'll take the second spot if nobody
Yeah,
wants
very.
to. But I think that while what Krishna said makes a lot of sense from the growth of education and skilling perspective in India, I think one thing we need to figure it out is that one of the big challenges as a country we are facing today is how this education can be basically rewired to focus to respond something to the market demand. Now, until that happens, it's very difficult to kind of map education or correlate education to employability. Now, online learning today is trying to fulfill that gap where these sectors are emerging, which is more in demand for the employability perspective. Now, if you look at it, Government of India has come back with the National Education Policy 2020. Now, the idea behind this is to encourage more and more people. I think their gross enrollment ratio, in fact, is very ambitious to not just 35%. After another 5 years, it's 50%. Now, to do that, they have to kind of figure out a way to have that kind of a spending ability to implement this in a staggered form and, kind of spend it in places where not just, you continue to focus on IIT IIMs, but the sectors that where, the demand will come in next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. How many of, IIT engineers today, or arts college, sorry, you can think of where government is focusing on, or there is an infrastructure development that is happening. Now, there is a lot that can be done in that space. As a lender, that our demand, our requirement seems to be a little different than as an edtech sector. That this government typically spend around 4.5% of its GDP on education. If you compare it to the world, it's a fairly decent number. While you might have US and all at 6%, but at a per capita level, it's seriously a decent amount of spend that is happening. I think what we need to figure it out is where this spend is going today, what kind of impacts that are we trying to measure. I think that's going to be very relevant. From a financing perspective, if you look at, all these online universities or offline universities that are coming up, they would need any sector that is growing needs finance to grow. Now, either a government of India can spend it, or they can encourage these financial entities to come up and, be part of this growth story and encourage this growth story. Now, how do you do that? If you look at, all the credit, with the moratorium or the COVID that happens, most of the capital they made available for, went all to the AAA rated or, double A rated kind of NBFCs or banks. Now, young NBFCs or edtech companies or Fintech companies who are trying to lend into the skilling, upskilling sector, we couldn't reap much benefit of it. Our cost of fund is still high compared to some of these, banks. And banks continue to lend in education as a priority sector lending. For them, anybody's going abroad, people can avail tax benefit. So these guys, would rather have a house as a collateral and finance these, courses. But they don't have this incentive for today for somebody to do an education course online. It's still being counted as a personal loan. And when it is get counted as a personal loan, there is no tax benefit. The interest rates are higher. The demand for you to be eligible for such loan is as comparable to you buying a mobile phone or a laptop. So, I think there are policies and structural changes need to be done to encourage more and more participation where people can finance. I absolutely like Krishna's suggestion that, part of your salary could be incentivized where people can use it to upskill. If the remaining needs to be financed, how do you do that? One, you can incentivize, financing entities, or two, you can incentivize employers. Why can't we build skill whilst paying somebody today? In India, there is a very high tendency you get a skilled resource and then you give a job. But you see this trend emerging where you get people, you get them in the organization, and employers are incentivizing today employees to get skilled or upskilled. So can we introduce a cess or a benefit for these employers where employees are encouraged to do these training. A part of that burden can be passed on to employers maybe. And the cost of funds for financing entity maybe can be brought down. So I think there are going to be structural changes that will be required at both financing and education market. It's going to be almost 500 million people in the next few years in the age group of 5 to 24, and more than that when you have 30. And all these people at that age are touching education or one or the other point of their life. So I think there is some things that needs to be done to increase the quality of education, which so far seems to be driven by online player. But at a grassroots level, maybe having better spend at the infrastructure level, you go deeper tier 2, tier 3. I was speaking to some of the customers and they said, I need to buy a laptop today. There's no incentive for me to buy a laptop, but I need that laptop to get educated. So why can't students be incentivized not just for education, but to buy digital infrastructure? So maybe tax rebates, incentives, funds directly getting transferred. And, we need to think of, overall upgradation of the education infrastructure. So maybe teachers incentive policies, upgrading skilling, teachers to impart better quality of knowledges. All that needs to be done at a, overall level to make sure more and more students kind of get enrollment. And financing entities need to be incentivized to finance these loans, and tax benefit need to be provided to them. We've been trying, for example, as a financing entity, there is a national credit guarantee that gets provided by Government of India. And the loans in skilling are covered, but the loans are only covered till 1.5 lakh rupees. Now, most of the online education costs more than that because you have a cost of a GST, as Krishna pointed out, and they go 2.5, 3.5 lakh, which means, those kind of loans are absolutely excluded. And when you don't provide guarantees, financing entities have to manage their risk. So loans become, difficult to be provided to such players, and, the growth gets limited for not just availability of credit, but for people enrolling in such courses. So I think some changes needs to be both from the financing side and education side, and a larger coverage of this whole ecosystem needs to be done. And I know I was reading some articles, for example, on the ODE level, can the open digital infrastructures can be created? I mean, Diksha as a ODE exists today in education space. How many people even use it? The Government of India have been trying to get it implemented where, some part of India like Tamil Nadu, some of these state government entities have been pushing for these digital infrastructure. But maybe some of these, open networks can be created for a lot of online players, a lot of financing entity to ride and make it simpler for people to get educated and get finance. I think that some of these points will be very critical over next 12 to 24 months, specifically in the young age group that we are getting into.
I just want you to tell the viewers about your venture, because I didn't also know about it, and this is very significant for all of us. So if you can quickly tell us.
Absolutely. I mean, Mayank and Krishna should know us. We work very closely with them. But essentially what we do, Eduvanz is probably the only fintech or educator lender that provides study now, pay later kind of financing for people doing skilling and upskilling loans. So we provide these subvention or no interest loans for institute or students across India, and also the interest loans with any individual trying to upgrade their skill, enhance the skill that they currently possess, is not from maybe tier 1 universities and know they need to get employment, so they need to have a specific skill for job ready world. We finance those kind of education loans, and these loans does not require any collateral. They are digital journey, which means by partnering with online players, we integrate our technology with them so that the loans can be given through the online training partners, rather than somebody trying to figure it out where the lender is, how do I get my application submitted. So it's a digital infrastructure used to provide loans for people for skilling and upskilling purposes, and most of these loans are coming at no cost today.
Varun, sorry, but just to simplify, for my understanding is that if I go and take a course from Simplilearn, or if I go to UpGrad and take a course, then I can, so will Simplilearn and UpGrad offer me the loan facility if I'm trying to enroll in their club? Okay.
Right. So I'm going to hold Mayank accountable if he doesn't, or Krishna accountable if they don't, but ideally they should. So if you need to do any online course today, and not just online, maybe offline as well, even if you want to do K-12 and school education, yes, these institutes now should give you an option curve rather than paying upfront. Take a loan that can be paid over a period of 12, 24, 36 months, depending on the cost of the loans.
And who is your underwriter, if I may ask?
So we have our own underwriting. I mean, it sounds very cliched, but today, fintechs are doing that. So today, for example, one of the ways we underwrite today is not looking at what their FOIRs are, but their potential employment after they do courses like, let's assume, at UpGrad. So we know, for example, students from UpGrads have been phenomenal, right? Like, I mean, I'll be very upfront. These guys get a better ability to pay once they finish off their courses. So why do you underwrite them or their parents extensively and say, okay, you need to have that kind of a bank balance? So we take future employability into accounting. and then make sure that these loans are given. But for that to happen, the ecosystem of players and partners need to be held accountable. So, for example, we do hold UpGrads and Simplilearn accountable to providing quality educations to these students so that they have an ability to repay us back in future.
But this is very powerful. This democratizes opportunity for so many people across the country who can't afford, like 1 lakh we are talking, but 1 lakh is a big sum of money for so many people. And if you're giving that, then I think it's a very powerful. Very powerful.
In fact, 1 lakh is too far away today. With even like if you see edtechs becoming a white hat juniors and Byju's of the world, the courses are at 20,000, 25,000, and there is a massive needs of financing there. I mean, if you do it right, absolutely you can help then penetrate into larger India today.
Yeah. Thanks, Varun. Thank you.
So I'll talk a little fundamental, right? So education moved from very traditional offline to online digital, and the major workforce behind that is the teachers.
Yeah.
And teachers are not a skill so far, right? So when we look for a good quality teacher, they have 10 years, 15 years of experience in teaching an offline world. But when you talk about a modern teaching methodologies, they sort of fall behind. So I guess, and then going ahead, if you look at the way things are happening, the way that tech is sort of booming up, look at like say 5 years forward, we need to have a very huge, big pool of very skilled quality teachers who are very well equipped with the modern teaching methodologies and all the psychic behind that. Because again, teaching a student who are just sitting in front of you, it's a very entire different experiences than like you're teaching through a video. And I guess it has a lot of programs. So they have, if you want to get into a primary school teacher or a secondary school teacher, there is a like sort of you have to clear an exam. But those curriculums have not been defined so far. So that is something where government need to sort of put a good amount of effort looking at the future piece. The second thing is the GST, what Krishna was talking about. So I guess Krishna, Mayank and all, they have a very high ticket size product. We guys are into a hardcore government job preparation where a majority of first audiences are coming from tier 4, tier 5 towns of India, where even the 1,000 rupees is a big number. So even an option, if you ask them, yeah, you have 200 rupees, whether you want to buy a milk or an internet, they'll choose to buy a milk, not internet. Right. So if I talk about 18% GST on a course program, that is somewhere around 200 rupees, right? So you are actually making them enabling sort of in that 200 rupees, they could have sort of get a very good stable internet. So that is one piece. And again, if you look at the book has 0% GST, ebook has 5% GST, and then all video-based courses have 18% GST. Vice versa, the cost of creating a video-based learning or a live tutoring-based learning is far, far expensive than creating an ebook or a book. Right. So, and again, and like say in all edtech ecosystem and all, the initial infrastructure cost is very, very high, based from a content side or based from a technology side. And then again, a lot of so I guess people who have raised a lot of funds, it's become a little easier for them. They can afford 200 developers. The people who are starting off just now, they don't have those sort of infrastructure ready in India to use and sort of plug, play, and just start delivering a good quality content. So that is, and the third piece is, again, metros till tier 3, people have access to devices. You go to villages. I'm from Madhubani, again, tier 5 town of Bihar. And then there, again, buying a 5,000 rupees phone is not easy. So we need to get out and come up with the government need to come up with some subsidized model where actually they can provide some those device access at a very cheaper price. And I remember 5 years back when I was studying in IIT, Akhilesh Yadav, UP chief, that time they were distributing laptop, tabs and all. And that point of time, the services were not available. Today, digital services are available, but people don't have the devices. So again, those are a few fronts where government can definitely contribute. And again, so one of the biggest problems that we guys struggle right now is whenever we have a student from like say tier 5 town, doesn't matter how good your teachers are teaching and all, they do have a buffering issue. Because again, the internet is still patchy in those areas, right? And we are developing our own tech where we can deliver a live streaming at 1/10 of the data consumption. And we have been building this for almost last 4 to 5 months. And it's going to take a couple of more months to define that. And it's a very expensive piece. So I guess those are the fundamental corrections or support that a digital or a tech ecosystem needs from the government, where like say looking at 5 years forward, we can be like say much stronger, both in terms of demand as well as supply.
Yeah, but Ashutosh, you have covered the heart of, this whole year I've been talking to edtech players, and one of the crucial things have been the the inequality which is also getting created. While we are talking about big numbers, because every number in India is such huge numbers, but people and coming from certain backgrounds, family backgrounds, income level, access to device, like basic core access to device, internet infrastructure, that is still missing if we have to make sure that it reaches to everyone.
And the biggest advantage of edtech is actually for the students living in a remote area of India. Because if you would have been like staying in Mumbai or Patna or Lucknow, right, still you have access of good quality teachers and infrastructure. Though it's little expensive, if you have money, you can access that. But if you are like say in the remote part of the India, even if you have money, you cannot access that. So I guess those are the biggest pool of janta who gonna get advantage of this digital revolution in education. But again, we need to go deeper into it and figure out how we can facilitate those people to come online and start learning.
Yeah, thank you. The teacher in you speaks. I read that you were a physics teacher before you started textbook.
Yeah, so I taught physics for almost 7 years. The entire college days was teaching, playing, and then studying metallurgy.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Mayank?
Thanks. I think most of it has been spoken, not much to add. But I think just two things. I think we do this every year. Expectation from the budget. I think I would love to do next year. What was said on the last budget to what happened till the next budget. And I think that's one place where I do want to sort of highlight that I think we spoke a lot about NEP implementation and NEP happening, but I think one of the critical expectation for me from the budget would be how will this get implemented? And there's a lot of great things that have been spoken about. I mean, it's one of the best. I mean, it's a case study for anyone to read if you have to build a good education system. I mean, last year, if you remember, Shraddha, we spoke about top 100 universities will be given ability to offer online degrees.
Yes.
And in this group, I can ask you, tell me 5 universities that have started it. We don't have the answer to that.
Yeah.
I think we do need this particular time to actually start seeing results and execution on the ground. I think that would be the first big expectation. I think very visionary document, but putting it down on the ground is going to be important. The second big ticket thing for me potentially, and I think we can talk a lot about making accessible and learning accessible about when we went in the COVID era, which was pre-budget and then sort of the COVID sort of hit us. We entered into an era where 95 or even 99% of the faculty members were not trained on online tools and technology, to what Ashutosh mentioned. And I think we are now getting into this new sort of play. There has to be either a full revamp on B.Ed infrastructure or the curriculum, and online has to become a very integral part of the training. And look, I mean, doctors have this continuous learning piece where you have to always, lawyers have this continuous professional education that every 1 year you have to get some credits. Teachers need to have the same thing, specifically in the current context. And if you haven't done a small online certification, online program, how to teach online, we should give some leeway for teachers and infrastructure to get established so that people can learn how to teach online. Otherwise, we'll keep on talking about infrastructure, but the core is what Ashutosh mentioned at the end of the day, teachers. If teachers don't know how to teach online, it's very difficult for us to sort of establish this out. Financing, I think, third ecosystem, which has been spoken a lot about, whether it is putting it as part of ATC, looking at GST, adding moratorium period. But without financing, Shraddha, this ecosystem cannot be built. And I'm just telling you that we get better financing deals for traveling abroad than for education. And I'm just putting it out there that, look, this is the harsh reality. You get faster loans, and Varun and the team are doing a phenomenal job in making accessible loans specifically meant for education. But if I go out today, I have a hoarding outside right now, outside my office, get loans in 30 seconds for mobile phones. But don't have get loans in 30 seconds for an educational product. And that just shows the priority of the ecosystem. And the last one that I will leave with, Shraddha, is this public-private partnership. There's a lot of edtech conversation that happens. I mean, you have the larger ecosystem, but there hasn't been a strong public-private partnership that is, and if I look at IT sector initially, telecom sector initially, they grew on the back of good amount of public-private partnership. And if there are ways and means in which government can facilitate that, I mean, what Textbook is doing on learning and for test prep, there's a huge need for government on the grassroots level to use the technology and deliver it at the last mile. And many of us would be more than happy to sort of figure a way out of delivering it. I think net, if you look at, all of us are saying that, look, don't give the companies anything, at least make the consumer's life and the financing life easier. Because I think as an entrepreneur, will build great products, people will come and buy the product. As long as the infrastructure is better, if roads are good, people will come to the retail mall. If financing, connectivity, all those things are better, and teaching staffs are there, edtech ecosystem will continue to boom over a period of time.
Education will no longer be online and offline, but the word used is blended. Blended learning experience will be the norm, and both in some way will coexist. Now, if you had to say, and Mayank, picking up from what you said, the partnership between this world and that world, because that's where the impact would be. How do you think we can make that happen? And what would you like to suggest? Because government has the power, the influence to make such things happen. What should they do?
I think there's enough good conversation happening at the government level of making the public-private partnership, and I think Simplilearn and us both have tied up with NSDC and sort of benefiting from that partnership also. But I'm just giving you a simple example. I think online degrees, for example, a lot of universities are coming up. But between Simplilearn, UpGrad, we have built great platforms and great scalable delivery infrastructure. And it's very easy for any of the government university to plug in and scale up their presence in the online degree space. But at the same time, the online degree regulation states you cannot franchise out education. So it does not say yes, nor does it say no. So the regulation has to be slightly more clearer in that context, so that, we have a network of about 1,000+ mentors. And when you're talking about blended, Shraddha, like right now, what we are talking, would you call it online or offline? Because we are very live and we are having meaningful conversations. But sometimes we confuse online as just access to content in a recorded manner. But between what we have built, allowing universities to partner, tie up with some of the private providers, and come back with a large-scale sort of solution. Madhubani guy travels to Delhi University, stays in Katwaria Sarai, prepares for IAS examination, joins a Delhi University program. And girls don't get allowed to move out of Madhubani to travel to a Mumbai University play. If you can provide a great Delhi University curriculum delivered in Madhubani, in partnership with Testbook, who is providing them the test prep ecosystem, Simplilearn or UpGrad providing them a degree from Delhi University. There's no reason why GERs, then that's not a conversation to have at the end of the day, because it will continue to scale as we go along.
They are government colleges, but there are so many thousands in every state. There are thousands and thousands of private colleges which are existing. There are so many colleges in this country. I don't know the number, but there's so many. Now, how do you bring them, government colleges, these private colleges, and you as players together to coexist?
I can give a very simple example, and maybe Krishna can add to this. So let's take an example of Patna University. Given that you mentioned that. Now, if Patna University programs are available to the entire region in Bihar and Jharkhand, where people don't have to come from Ara or Giridih down to Patna to study, that's where a tech platform like, let's say, UpGrad, or even for that matter, Simplilearn, can go and collaborate with Patna University, saying, we will help you in content. We will create the sort of technology platform. You can host it on our platform. It's an online degree delivered by Patna University to remote locations. A test book can come in and collaborate with Patna University, saying that, look, we will also offer them preparation for IAS and bank PO examination. Eduvanz plugs into Patna University, saying, hey, anyone trying to come and join the program will get financing options from Eduvanz. And together, it's a full ecosystem play. It's not just one of us sort of coming and collaborating. There is potential opportunity for all of us to come together, because, look, there are about 30,000 colleges and institutions in this country and about 1,000+ universities. I think still people want to go to a government university because there's a charm to a government university. Government universities are capped with capacity that they cannot hire more than a certain number of students. and everyone cannot get 99% plus, unfortunately. So can online degrees be that sort of access enabler where a Delhi university collaborates with an edtech provider, collaborates with a test prep provider, collaborates with funding agencies, and together offers a meaningful solution to our population out there?
To solve this whole private university, private college challenge that you wanted to refer, that there's a lot of low quality education being offered. A degree, like you pay money to get a degree, because degree also is also a kind of a commodity, right? You want degree because you want degree. What does a degree do so become secondary, right? So this also solves that problem, because the only way to increase capacity is to go online, right? And Mayank already explained the model. It's pretty simple, proven, just waiting for the right kind of encouragement from all kinds of stakeholders to scale it. Like in NEP, I think socially I was on a call with a few of the VCs in some conference, and the discussion was happening on NEP, and the response from multiple VCs were that, yes, we heard about NEP in newspaper and we don't know after that. So nobody knows.
And one more thing, Shraddha, to add here, as you mentioned, as Mayank was mentioning, there are like 30,000 colleges, right? But if you talk about how many percentage of them are good colleges, having good infrastructure and good quality of teachers, it's not more than 10%. When you talk about edtech, that's where the advantage is, right? You just need 10% to educate the entire world or the entire country.
Yeah.
That's where, like, say, the poor quality system will, like, say, move out of the system. The good quality system will retain. And that will be sort of, will have a very wider distribution network where all of them can actually get a good quality education.
If I have to pick up from all of you, and maybe you could do this, or is that 3-4 things, if we have to say very clearly, we want from the government? All of you can say.
Lower GST rate.
I think I'll since you already covered Ashutosh that, but I'll say that give us some kind of taxable break that which I am earning. It's not that I'm asking from the government. I should be able to expense out a part of my salary to upskill myself.
You need to incentivize education, and you need to incentivize the guys who are financing. So how do you do that? Either you bring the cost of fund downs for young NBFCs like that, us who are not systematically important, or you offer the tax benefits, or to either the employers or the individual themselves, so that these guys get encouraged. So somewhere for direct impact on the financing side of things will be very relevant for us.
All monetary related. So I think GST, ATC benefit, and the priority sector lending. I mean, I will just maybe add one bit lastly, not just for Harvard, but the public partner partnership, and how do they promote a lot of these? See, edtech is taking center stage. It just needs to get that same center stage. I mean, Byju's is providing great content. Can it go to schools? Whitehead is doing phenomenal stuff. Can it go to schools? Higher education is getting multiple edtech providers. Can it partner directly with universities? So I think that would be my last sort of comment on outside of the financial benefits that we can end up getting.
And just one thing from my side, Shraddha, I mean, I think these partnerships will, while they're happening, like while these education institutes have partnered with NSDC, we as a lender has partnered with NSDC also, because they have very relevant data on how the industry has been performing, which makes us underwrite them better. But I think this partnership will go step by step, even in financing world, while digitization is happening in fintechs, not in banks, as they say. So the concept, hybrid concept is digital. I think the same thing that will happen in the world of online also. We know a lot of training partners today are moving while completely online. Some are making sure the students come on weekend on classes, or the guys who are not doing too well, they are called to classes, so that the overall batch, kind of performs well. So I think this digital world, how you have in fintech, these hybrid world of education will continue to evolve in edtech sector as well, before it moves completely online, maybe someday.
A philosophical question. In a country like us, because we are not America, we are not China, we are not, whatever we keep getting compared to, or on the scale of either not being there or going to be there. I'm saying we are India. When it comes to education, what's your view? Should we be a welfare-oriented, our education orientation as the government, should we be more welfare oriented, or there should be more capitalism and more capitalistic? Our approach should be more capitalistic.
I have a very strong view on this, Shraddha, and I think I have multiple papers that I've read, multiple research notes that I've read, and I think the question that people get asked, that you should not profit from education, and education as a business should not be profit oriented. My only question back in that context is, if it is high quality education, does that matter? And I think at this level where the country is, just giving out access to education is not going to solve the problem. I think we have gone past that phase of access to education is not going to solve the problem. We need high quality education. And see, look, funding is a secondary question. Funding can happen from government, funding can happen from employer, funding can happen from individuals. But the place where this country is, no sector can be built unless the funding is happening directly by the consumer.
Yeah.
Therefore, my take is very simple that there has to be for-profit ecosystem because that will drive quality and ensure that you're delivering at scale.
And I would simply say that I think the education needs to be divided into two parts. One is the basic education. I think this is where large amount of spend needs to be done and accessibility needs to be created, infrastructure which government will have to drive. I think it's very difficult for consumers at a grassroots level to figure out a way to get access to these, things. But I think beyond a certain point to enable individuals, skill themselves better and get ready for the 21st, 22nd, whatever century you want to call. I think that's where, what Mayank is saying, I will echo the thought that they need to be held accountable and responsible as an ecosystem. We need to come and support them. But I think that democratization of education can absolutely happen. But at a base level, we continue to support so that the thought process gets developed and people move away from, it's okay either not to get educated or just to get, degree for the sake of degree.
A small point, and I'll not take more than 30 seconds, is that the fact that we were living in an era where one and done was okay. You go for one degree and you're done. But in today's context, when you're shifting job every 5 years, I mean, these days people are shifting job as they're changing the calendar. Mobile phone is longer than your job. And when your skills are changing faster than the mobile phone, you may need a different approach than what it was, let's say 10 years back or 15 years back.
Both the concepts need to like coexist, right? When it comes to like having a more welfare state kind of view, I think that's something to be done when it comes to school education. I think higher education can be left to be managed by all kinds of actors, including private parties. If they're giving high quality education, why not? And it's already happening globally, right? If you look at some of the most known universities globally are not government owned; they are privately owned by trusts.
Yeah.
But in India, one more thing I think that really is quite puzzling is that our government colleges are desirable. IITs, IIM, and so many of them are desirable. Our government schools are not. I don't know what is wrong there.
The government colleges restrict. Government schools don't restrict it.
Thank you. This is a very, I think we had a very nuanced and very interesting conversation. Now it's our job to edit it tightly and make sure that it reaches the right people. I had interviewed Nirmala Sitharaman 2 months back, and she had said, send us the voices of entrepreneurs and we will listen. So I'm hoping that this voice, someone in the government listens, and hopefully she and her department listens. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks.